Hello everyone, welcome to one of our workshops that we're making this semester. This one we're going to be talking about basic command line. So command line is a prompt that you as the user navigate with certain commands as given with the name. This at first seems like a redundant way of doing exactly what your file system can do, but knowing how to use the command line can help in unique ways that actually take longer than using the file system. For instance, I could change the name of files one by one in the file system, or I could enter a command that performs that task in one line instantaneously. If I want to find information within a large file, I could use a certain command that gives me specific information, kind of like a Control F type of deal. But it's a lot faster. Command line is also very popular when working with servers, and the command line also allows you to change permissions of specific files. It's very manual file system, and it's really cool and rewarding once you know all the commands and such. Syntax of the command line does differ depending on the operating system and the software you are inputting the commands. For this video, I will explain the command line through a software called PuTTY. PuTTY, which uses the more popular Unix shell commands. If you are using a Windows system, I would recommend PuTTY. That's how you're going to be able to SSH or connect to the Siemens server on your Windows device. If you've ever had to work with MySQL Workbench, it should be familiar. If you're working with a Mac or a Unix system, or Linux, you could just type terminal in the search and a terminal will come up. These commands will also work with those operating systems. I will preface and say I understand that the command line seems super intimidating and completely esoteric. Hopefully by the end of this video you will get more comfortable with this seemingly archaic system, and feel free to reach out to me with Arcosis Tech if you have any questions. Before we get into some basics, let's get into the gross looking word that may or may not be familiar to you, called SSH, which means Secure Shell Protocol. When we SSH, we are connecting to an outside device or server in an encrypted way or in an indecipherable way to outsiders. In other words, we're gaining remote access to another device. This graphic does a good job of illustrating what I just described. SSH is one of many ways to connect between devices, but to keep this video focused and brief, we will only go over our important SSH command. So again, looking at this graphic, we have our client, which is going to be us. We put in whatever commands or message. The pathway to the server encrypts that, so then it's for privacy reasons, and then it becomes decrypted and Siemens server receives the command and knows what to do with it. Whenever you SSH, it's typically in this format, SSH user segment, so your username at the host. And so if you ignore this -L in canary line, you will see this layout. So SSH and then your username at, and the host is web.siemens.edu. With a lot of command line commands, they will have different menu options, which are indicated by a dash and then a letter, depending on what you want. SSH has a -L command. This is saying that we want to add a forwarding address, and the 3306 value completes that option. So this one right here, which is a specification on how you should connect. Alright, so let's get started. To connect to the Siemens server and get to where I am at the moment, if you're on a Windows device, you're going to have to install PuTTY. We have instructions on our Arcosis course technology page, and you just got to click on how to connect to Siemens server. This is specifically about MySQL Workbench, but if you scroll down, you'll find instructions on PuTTY, going through this screen, and then to add this additional information, and you're able to connect to the Siemens server. If you're on a Linux or Mac machine, you just have to put in that command that I showed in the PowerPoint slide earlier, and that should do the trick. You'll get a Duo push prompt. Just follow those instructions and you'll get in, as you can see on my screen. If you ever get frustrated with what's on your terminal, you can always type clear and it will reset what you see there. So if you have that whole Duo push junk, it pushes it up. I've also put a file navigation screen here on the right, so then you could see an equivalent of what we're doing in the command line, and that may be an easier way for you to understand what I'm doing here. Alright, let's get into some basics. So for us to understand what is in our current directory, which by the way just means whatever folder we're in command line we essentially just call folders directories. So we kind of want to see this sort of screen where we can see what's in that file or in that path. So you just have to type ls and you'll see everything that's on your Simmons server. Everyone at least should have public_HTML in their server. The .csv file is something that I've transferred to the server, so you should not have that on your server. With that even basic command ls, there's a lot of different options you can pick. I guess that's a way to say it, to change how you see what's in this file. So if I do ls-r, it lists everything else in reverse. When I do ls-l, it shows this information, which may or may not be useful, but this part on the left are permissions, date and time of creation. Very neat, very basic, and if you ever want to learn more about whatever commands that we're doing, you can just type man and then ls or whatever command, and I'll show you different options and describe to you what that command does. Alright, so my file system here looks very empty. So I want to make a new file. And I'm going to call it test.html. What do I do on the command line to do the equivalent? Very simple. You just do the little arrow key. And you can type the name of the file, test.html. And you can see whether or not it worked by typing our handy dandy ls. And there you can see it, test.html. So this right now is the equivalent of what we're seeing here on the right. Also, a thing that you can do in command line is insert information into these files. So I can double click this and I can type this is a test. And I click file, save, and now that's been harnessed in there. So if I re-click it again, I get this information, this is a test. Alright, so how do we do that in here? We can type vi and then we can type out test.html. We click it. It's gonna put us in this scary looking blank black screen. You cannot currently type anything in it though. You have to press the I button. I as inside. And you'll see right here on the bottom left it says insert. So I for insert, meaning that you are in insert mode. So I just type this is a test, period. And if I want to leave this mode, I just press escape. Now how do I get out of this window? You just have to type W, so you'll see your, not W, colon, which is you can see on the bottom left, you can see your feed, colon, Q. Alright, it's giving me an error because I didn't save. So for you to save, you have to do colon, W, Q. Done. That's exciting. So how do we open the file like what we do over here? We just double click it and it shows up right there. Well, you can list out whatever initial information is in the file by just typing cat. There we go. We get this is a test. Alright, so looking at this, I kind of think that my test file isn't where it belongs. I want to make a folder. So on the file navigation, I just click new, folder, and give it a name, test folder. And then you can just drag it in there. Very simple. Command line, for you to make a folder, or in command line jargon, a directory. You do mk, short for make, and then dir, make directory, test folder. Then we type ls, and we can see there it is. It is a folder. We can then move our test file into the test folder by typing mv, short for move, test.html to test folder. And we type ls. Our test.html file is gone. Oh my gosh, how do I access it now? Well, in the file navigation, we just double click and we're able to get into the folder. In command line, we just type cd, which means change directory, and we're going to type out test folder. We are now in that folder, and you can tell because in our little brackets, it now tells us that we in the path are now in the test folder. And we can type ls, and we see that our test.html has made it in. Is it still the same? We can type out cat test.html. It's still the one that says this is the test. But now I want to go back. I want to go back to where we were originally, where we just click this little back button and we see the folder again. No big deal. We type change directory again, cd, and then ... period, enter, ls, and we're back to where we started. Alright, so I've just realized that I've completely disliked what I've just done, and I want to get rid of all of it. So, in the case of our file menu, we could just click our test folder, then go test.html, and click delete, and it's gone. Then we go to downloads, and we can do the same thing with our folder. In the command line, we do the following. So we change directory back into our folder, and then we can type rm, short for remove, test.html. We could type ls to make sure that there's nothing there. There isn't. I'm going to change directory back to our main one. Type ls, yes, we're right there, and I'm going to type rmdir, remove directory, test folder, and now it's gone. So all of the work that we just did is now deleted, and so now you sort of are an expert at the basics of command line. This can seem redundant or even more difficult compared to the file navigation where you just click the buttons and it all works, but with certain shortcuts you can work with a whole lot more information in files and delete what you want or create what you want en masse, and that's why command line can be useful, and now you know the basics that can help you navigate the Simmons server. Just really quickly, I want to hint at some of the more fun commands that you can do in command line. So I'm going to type clear. So if you remember, I have this Excel sheet in the form of a .csv file. I can list out what I have to you in this file. It's a table demarcated by commas. Owner name, dog name, dog breed, and dog age. Now imagine that we have like 1,000 entries. It can be really hard to sort out which of these entries we want or want to hone in on. So there are some cool commands that can help us out with this. One of these we could do, let's see, so cat, we want to list it out, and we're going to do pipeline. A pipe means that you want to take whatever the output of this command and use the next command and apply it to that one. So I want it to take the output of it listing out all of these lines and sort it. And it has. The only downside with this method is that it doesn't ignore the header, so it's also sorted the header. There are means of avoiding this, but we won't go into that. What if I want to find a specific, I don't know, person or dog or certain age that a dog is? So let's do cat demo. I'm pressing tab, by the way, to autocomplete the name of the file. It's easier that way. And then pipeline, grep, which is one of the many search commands that you have in command line. And let's say I want to find Larry. And it gives me the line that has Larry in it. So you can see that perhaps this could be useful in a very large file where you can't find anything. That's it on the basics. These are two textbooks that I super recommend. The first one, Linux Command Line. It's spearheaded by a company that makes things very clear while typing. And the second one with the creepy animal on it, I'm sorry about that, but this is the assigned textbook that I got when I took my Linux class. And it was very helpful, and it's sort of like a dictionary to me, so whenever I forget something, I pull it back out. And also Google is your friend. I find myself typing a lot reminders of the exact syntax of how to do commands, so please don't feel bad doing that either. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Kosis Tech. So as a review of what we've learned this video, we've learned the following commands. I've summarized them here on this slide. Pause it here, I imagine, and use this as a reference or write it down. Thanks for watching.